So in the last class, we have seen different types of induction generators. That is, we have seen the W-fed induction generator as well as the uh, um, sorry, in squirrel cage induction generator with the AC side capacitor as well as the DC side capacitor. We are still continuing the types of induction types of machines that can be used. So for today, let's start with the wound field induction generator. Wound field synchronous generator. So let us go into the topic. A synchronous generator can also be employed in a variable speed wind energy conversion scheme. So he's saying that instead of using an induction generator, we can also use a synchronous generator. In case of a self-excited squirrel cage induction generator under variable speed operation, the amount of lagging VAR required for the voltage regulation is supplied by the switched capacitors or controlled rectifiers with fixed capacitors or frequency controlled generator side voltage source inverters. So basically when we go for the self-excited squirrel cage induction generator, we can regulate the voltage by using either of these. We can directly attach a fixed capacitor, or we can go for a control rectifier with fixed capacitors, or we can go for a frequency control generator side voltage source inverters. We can use any of this to control the amount of lagging VAR. In case of the synchronous generator, the generator voltage can be controlled more easily by using a voltage regulator in the field circuit. So we need not to go for the capacitors or capacitor switching or anything in case of a synchronous generator. Directly, we can just have a voltage regulator in the field circuit. It also requires no shunt capacitors or controlled inductors to achieve the voltage regulation. So we also this synchronous generator also does not require any shunt capacitors or controlled inductors. Nothing. We don't require all those things for the voltage regulation. The figure 6.9 illustrates the power generation scheme at the grid frequency employing a variable speed synchronous generator with an excitation control. So this is the scheme for the uh, synchronous generator with variable speed drive and utility interface, all the control scheme. So here you can see that we have a synchronous generator, we have a diode bridge, we also have a generator field control, we also have a field current or DC link current bar speed characteristics. Next, inverter firing control, all these things we have. So we are just using all these things instead of the switched capacitors and uh, rectifiers with the switched capacitors in case of the synchronous generator. The conversion scheme for the variable output of this synchronous generator consists of an uncontrolled bridge rectifier, a filter capacitor, a smoothing DC link choke, and a line commuted thyristor bridge inverter. So he's just giving us what is present in this case. The diode and the thyristor bridges generate the harmonic currents and voltages, and their interaction results in considerable power fluctuations through the DC link. So we know that whenever we are going for an electronic device, whatever the electronic device may be, it might be a power electronic device or a normal electronic component, there is a chance for the harmonic currents and there is a chance for all these harmonic voltages and currents to be present, right? So here also that is what is happening. Here the diode and the thyristor bridges are nothing but the electronic components, power electronic components. So they are generating harmonic currents and voltages, and because of their interaction with the normal voltages and currents, there is a considerable power fluctuation in the DC link. This interaction is considerably reduced by means of a capacitor filter at the output of the diode bridge. So we are employing a capacitor filter such that these harmonic currents and voltages are being filtered. So this interaction, because you are reducing the amount of currents and voltages, because of that, we'll be having a reduction in the interaction. Okay. The control strategy is based on the speed cube law for optimal power output from the wind turbine. Generally, we know that there is a speed cube law, right? The power will be proportional to the cube of the wind speed. This we know. First, in the first chapter itself, we have seen this. Based upon that, the control strategy is being prepared. Okay. Okay. In the system illustrated in the figure 6.9, the turbine or the generator speed, and the DC link voltage are chosen as input variables, and the DC link current and the generator field current as output variables. So we are taking DC link voltage and the speed of the turbine or speed of the generator, either can be taken. Those are taken as the input variables, and the DC link current and the generator field current are taken as the output variables. Demand values for the latter to provide matching generator outputs according to the optimal wind speed characteristic are drawn from pre-estimated linear control curves relating the field current or DC current with the speed for different power levels held in an EEPROM. So actually what we are doing here is we know what are the optimal wind turbine characteristics, right? This we have already done this, we have already estimated in case of the wind speed characteristics of the area and wind speed characteristics of the turbine and all those things which we have seen in the previous chapters. There we have already have there we have already established a specific linear curves. Those from those linear curves we are just taking the values, matching how to, if in order to provide a matching generator output, just we are taking the values from that linear control curves, and those values are stored in an EROM. It's just like what do you say? We need to have a standard values, right? Those standard values are being taken from different calculations like the wind speed characteristics and the wind speed characteristics of the area, as well as the wind speed characteristics of the turbine, and all those things. By matching all those characteristics, we are getting the optimal values or the predetermined values, and those we are putting it into a memory device. Okay. When the maximum current required for the rated operation is reached at a certain speed, the current value is kept constant at higher speed. So, if you are if so, when the current required for the rated operation is reached, then the current value is held constant. The DC link voltage is limited to a specific value to prevent it exceeding the rated value. So basically, we are just maintaining all the rated values here. So here, okay. Next, under the variable speed operation, when the generator speed is low, the DC link voltage is less than its rated value, and the firing angle of the inverter has to be advanced in order to meet the generated power, resulting in a reduced power factor at the grid. So basically, if it is a variable speed operation, then when the generator speed is low, DC link voltage will be less than the rated value. Okay, and the firing, because the DC link voltage is less than its rated value, the firing angle of the inverter has to be advanced. That means we are moving the firing angle into an advanced state such that the generation power will be matched. But this whole process, what will happen in this whole process means the power factor will be reduced at the grid. The power factor can be improved by choosing a boost chopper, not booster chopper, boost chopper, and a PWM inverter as shown in the figure 6.10. Here you can see that we have a boost chopper as well as a PWM inverter. So just to increase the power factor, we are including some more equipment into the circuit. Okay. Since the machine inductances have been utilized and the filter capacitance is already present, the additional components required for the boost chopper are a transistor and a forward diode connected before the filter capacitor. So we have all these things, that is the capacitance we have as well as the inductances also we have. So we are just adding a transistor as well as the forward diode connected in connected before the filter capacitor, that is here you can see in this diagram. So we are just adding this transistor as well as this diode, that's all. These two are the things which we are adding, that's all. A line commuted 6 pulse phase controlled inverter returns the generator energy to the network with a distorted current waveform, rich in low order harmonics at varying power factor. The only thing which we need to keep in mind is whenever we are going for this additional equipment, this additional power electronic equipment, there will be again lower order harmonics that are being injected into the system. So we'll be having a distorted wave instead of a normal wave. To deal with this problem, one can use a PWM voltage source inverter which provides the interface between the network, sorry, which provides the interface with the network to return power with near sine wave quality current at any desirable power factor. So just we need to make sure we need to change the inverter into a PWM voltage source inverter. That's all. For unity power factor operation, the output current of the inverter is proportional to the power, and hence the cube law with speed can be guiding factor to decide onset value of the inverter output current. So just the thing is we are using that cube law everywhere, we are using that cube law, and we are just understanding what is the speed we need to maintain as well as what is the inverter output current we will get. That's all. With the increase in the power demand, the DC link voltage tends to fall while the generator side step up converter tries to maintain a constant DC link voltage by controlling the power flow from the generator. So the as the power demand increases, the DC link voltage decreases. Sorry, DC link voltage decreases because of the falling DC link voltage. The generator set step-up transformer will try to maintain the DC link voltage constant. The control of this step-up chopper is based on the hysteresis switch sensing the output of the diode bridge rectifier and the speed of the generator. So based upon which parameters are we going for this control means based upon the parameters like output of the diode bridge rectifier as well as the speed of the generator. Okay. So basically what we are doing is we are trying to make sure that the output and the DC link voltages are being held constant. For that, we are going for, instead of taking the cage rotor induction generator, we are going for the wound field synchronous generator, where the action of the control will be a little different than what we have seen in case of the induction generator. That's all. Okay. So the next topic which we will be seeing is the permanent magnet generator. The basic wind energy conversion requirements for a variable speed permanent magnet generator are almost the same as those for a wound field synchronous generator. So basically, whatever we had for the wound field synchronous generator, those same parameters can be used, those same things can be used for this permanent magnet generator also. The power circuit topology is basically the same as shown in the figure 6.9, which we have seen already. The permanent magnet generator dispenses with the need of the external excitation. Here, we need to have an external excitation in case of induction generator or the synchronous generator. This permanent magnet generator does not need any external excitation. Therefore, the output voltage under variable speed operation varies both in frequency as well as in magnitude. So, the under variable speed operation here, the output voltage will be changing both in frequency and magnitude. As a result, the DC link voltage changes in an uncontrolled manner. So, because of the change in the output, DC link voltage will also be changing uncontrollably. Okay. The control therefore is realized via DC or AC converter, that is inverter on the grid side. So, we will be using the grid side inverter for the control. Okay, ma. This there is a small derivation in this also. You just go through it. Okay. Let's go for the next topic. So here we have seen different types of machines. Now we will be seeing the next half of the what do you say? The next half of the chapter, that is the hybrid systems. Why are we going for the hybrid systems and what are the advantages of the hybrid systems? Let us see. So, hybrid systems. Renewable energy sources such as wind or solar energy can be utilized as independent sources for electrical power in the areas where standalone electrical power source is needed. Basically, we know in the starting of the subject itself, we have seen why we are going for the renewable energy sources, right? So, basically, whenever there is remote areas where the distribution grid cannot be reached, or the establishment of the distribution grid is very costly, there we go for renewable energy sources, which are like wind or solar or anything, whatever it might be. There are different types of renewable energy sources, right? So among those, any one of the sources can be used as the power source in that area where the what do you say distribution grid cannot be established. So for that we are going for either wind or solar energy. Okay, and basically we need to make sure that this is a standalone system rather than a grid connected system. So we need to make sure that our renewable energy system, whatever we are taking, is a standalone system. Okay, but the nature of these sources is very different from that of the conventional ones. We are using renewable energy sources, that is very good, but this the nature of these renewable energy sources will be very different from the normal conventional energy sources. Okay. To achieve the reliability of supply, system designers consider measures of combination with a rechargeable batteries for the energy supplied during the peak load periods and operation with some other type of generation. So basically, what we are going to do here in case of this hybrid systems means, if you are having only one supply, let us say we are having either wind or solar, then if the in the absence of, let us say, there is no wind at all in that particular at that particular point. So what happens? As this is a standalone system, the energy source is the wind itself, right? We will not have any grid connected system. So whatever the power that is required will be generated only because of the wind generation. So if there is an absence of wind, then there will be no electricity generation in that particular time, right? So uh, then there will be no reliable source of energy. The reliability of that particular system is very low. Let us say it is only, let us say we have only solar. In the same manner, if you have only solar, only during the day we'll be having electricity. During the night, we'll not be having any electricity. So, this what we are going to do, how we are going to manage this condition means we can go for either having a rechargeable battery. That means we are going to recharge a battery when the source is present, and when the source is absent, we'll be using the power from the battery. That we can do, or we can go for an combination of different types of energies. Okay, then let us say we are going for solar as well as wind. So in the absence of wind, solar energy will be tapped. In the absence of solar energy, wind energy can be tapped. So either way we are getting a continuous supply of energy. Okay, so batteries for continuous energy supply are expensive. They also require periodic charging, for which separate source of power is required. So basically, if we are using a system with a battery connected, with rechargeable batteries connected, then the continuous energy supply for that, for the continuous energy supply, the batteries should be very huge, right? That huge batteries means the amount required for the establishment of those huge batteries is very high. So it is an expensive phenomena. Okay, then we go for different types of sources. We are here taking the diesel driven alternators. So diesel driven alternators provide a reliable continuous source of electrical energy. They do provide a continuous source of energy. They have attained a high level of technology and are highly dependable if maintained properly. If we are maintaining the diesel engines correctly, then we can go for this diesel driven alternators. Okay, there because of the technology, high level technologies, and the advancements in that area, these are dependable if we maintain them properly. Although the initial cost of the diesel generators may be low compared to the renewable energy generators of compatible size, that means if you just comparing the renewable energy generator as well as the diesel engine of the same size, then this will be low. Diesel engine will be low. Even though it is low, they are characterized by high running cost, low fuel efficiency, high transportation cost, and a relatively high cost of maintenance and operation in the remote areas. So, even though it is the initial cost of establishment is less than the renewable energy sources, these diesel engines will be having very high running costs as well as lower fuel efficiency. That means because of the lower fuel efficiency, we need to give more amount of fuel. That means the fuel cost will be greater. And also transportation cost. Yes, you have to get the diesel from one place to another place, right? So that transportation cost will be greater, as well as the maintenance cost as well as the operation cost are also very high. Even though the initial establishment of the diesel generators is much less than the renewable generators, but in the long run, diesel will be a costlier situation. Okay. These disadvantages can be attributed to the operation of the diesel unit continuously at the low load factor, which is unavoidable as the diesel set must accommodate the peak load. So the basic issue with this diesel engine, this one is at low load factor, this has to be continuously operated. Okay. Apart from the above mentioned disadvantages, this is also one of the other disadvantage. It is not common for a designer to set the capacity of the diesel engines at a high level than the peak load so as to provide the safety margin for a sudden demand due to the additional load and also leave scope for the future extensions. So generally, we do not keep it at the whatever the rated load is there. To that load itself, we do not maintain the diesel engines, right? Any engine, not only diesel. So basically, this diesel engines will be having higher capacities, will be set to higher capacities than the peak load capacities. Okay, so we know that this for the safety purposes, and if there is and some, what do you say, unknown additional charge, additional loads are present, even in those conditions we know that the what do you say, diesel generator will be having a little higher than its peak load capacity. Moreover, load fluctuation through a single day between the one day and the other are very common, right? So the load fluctuations will be is a common phenomena, right? The load can be fluctuated within a day itself, or it can be like increasing from one day or the other, and all those things are very common. Okay, As the load on the diesel engine falls, its efficiency goes down, and at zero load, the engine burns 20 to 30% of the fuel required for the rated load. So, just if even if the load decreases, even if the load decreases, even at zero load condition also, the diesel engine will be burning around 20 to 30% of the fuel. That is very high amount, right? So all these factors make the diesel generator generation expensive. So because of all these factors, it is a very expensive system. However, some efficient systems can be contrived by integrating renewable energy systems and the battery inverter subsystems into the diesel generator set. So what we are going is, even if we are taking the diesel engine alone, it will be a very costly affair if to provide the electricity and all those things in a standalone system. But what we are doing is, we are trying to integrate this diesel engine with some form of renewable energy, whether it can be a wind energy or a solar energy. We are just integrating those two along with a battery system, along with a battery system and a wind energy system, and a renewable energy system. These diesel engines can be used. Such hybrid systems can have a number of benefits. That's what he's saying. Okay. Under favorable wind conditions, wind turbines can partially relieve the diesel set of its load, thereby saving some fuel. So, if we are having nice amount of, if we are just integrating wind and, let us say we are integrating the wind and diesel engine, then in case of normal wind conditions, under favorable wind conditions, the wind turbines will be taking this will be taking the load, and the diesel engines will not be having any load. Okay. Now, if that's what he was saying. If sufficient wind power is available, the diesel engine can be shut down, and the power demands met by the wind generator. Okay, this offsets the high cost of the running of the diesel generator. If the wind is, having a sufficient wind power and everything, then we need not to even on the diesel generator. We can directly off the diesel generator and go for the wind energy production itself. In case of the fall in the wind speed, the diesel generator can be started in order to cope with the load above supplied by the wind generator. If the wind speed is less, then the diesel generators will be started, and whatever the load that was being supported by the wind generation in the previous case will be supported by the diesel generator here. Okay. Photovoltaic power system can also be employed to form an integrated hybrid system with the wind generator in thermally driven areas. Strong winds occur towards or after sunset, and such winds are often associated with an overcast conditions. So till now we have seen what is the integration of diesel engine. Now we are going for the photovoltaic power supply, that is the PV systems. So we can also employ a PV system along with a wind generation. That is what he's saying. Why can we do this? Where can we do this? Means where this particular thing can be done where thermally driven wind areas. That is, if the wind in that area is basically because of the temperature differences, and it is a thermally driven wind, then we can go for this PV system with a wind generation system. Okay, so here in this thermally driven areas, when will be the wind energy at its peak? Means it will be at its peak towards or after sunset. So that in that condition, we can tap the wind energy, and before the sunset and all those things, photovoltaic cells will be taking over. This goes into a complementary nature of the solar and the wind energy. A hybrid solution using the turbines and the photovoltaic modules may provide a reliable configuration over a long period. So he's saying that if you are doing this, then these are just complementary, right? Before the sunset, the sun will be taking over, that is the PV system will be taking over. And after the sunset, because of the strong winds that are being flown, the wind energy can take place. The wind energy can take over. That means we are having both the solar and the wind at the same time. They are very complementary. Okay, this will provide a reliable configuration over a long period. That is, over a long run, this will be a very beautiful combination. In a wind solar hybrid system, wind power always plays a dominant role because photovoltaic production is costly. This wind, right? Wind energy is much cheaper than the photovoltaic production. So, because of that, whenever we are going for this hybrid system where wind and solar are the combinations, wind will be given the more preference. Wind will be the dominant form of energy. Okay. Next is we are going to see the diesel generator and the photovoltaic system. That is how these are being constructed and what are the parts present in this each of them. Okay. Now the first one is the diesel generator. Okay. A diesel powered power plant is a form of internal combustion engine which uses high speed diesel fuels, works only not only on works on compression ignition principle and employs a four stroke cycle of operation. So basically, when we are going for the diesel generator, it is nothing but an industrial internal combustion engine which is using high speed diesel fuels. Okay, this works on the principle of compression ignition principle. There are two types of ignition principles, right? So compression ignition principle will be there. Other is sorry, I forgot about that. Just give me a second, I'll tell you. Okay, there are two types, that is the compression ignition and then spark ignition. So in the spark ignition, what happens is because of this a small spark, a mechanical, there will be an choke present in that. That choke will be giving a spark, and then the total system will be ignited. But in the compression ignition, what happens is the air which we are taking will be compressed such that the temperature of the air will be increased, and that will produce a heat or the required heat for the start of the process. Okay, so there are two types, that is the compression ignition as well as the spark ignition. Okay, here we are using a compression ignition along with a four stroke cycle of operation. We'll see what are the four strokes and how this is done. Okay, four strokes are the suction stroke, compression stroke, expansion stroke, and the exhaust stroke. So these are the four strokes, that is the suction, compression, expansion, and the exhaust. During the suction stroke, the piston of the engine cylinder moves towards the crank end of the cylinder, that is the downward movement, and fresh air is sucked into the cylinder through the inlet valve. Here you can see that is the first stroke. As it goes down, the air will be taken into the cylinder. Okay. Now, in the compression stroke, the piston moves towards the cover end of the cylinder, that is upward movement, and compresses the air to an extent of rising its temperature to well above 558 degrees Celsius. So, because of that compression, the air will be compressed. Whenever there is a compressed situation, whatever it might be a spring or it might be air or anything, the temperature of that particular substance will increase. So because of that compression stroke, in this compression stroke, the temperature will be increased. At the end of the stroke, a fine spray of fuel is injected into the cylinder by the injection nozzle, resulting in spontaneous ignition of the fuel air mixture. So that is what is happening. Okay, so we have air is being sucked during the suction stroke, and then in the compression stroke the air is being compressed, and then there will be a spray of fuel. Okay, there you can see, right? You are seeing the spray of fuel also in that. During that spray, this is already a heated air, this is already a compressed and heated air. So what happens, then the ignition, as the fuel comes, the fuel will be ignited. The hot gas inside the cylinder develops a high pressure which pushes the piston downward, delivering the power to the shaft. So here, because of that hot air and all those things, there will be a pressure developed, and that pressure will be pushing the piston downwards, and then the power will be given to the shaft. This is the power stroke or expansion stroke. This is called as the power stroke or expansion stroke. In the final stroke, that is the exhaust stroke, the piston moves upwards and the burnt gas escapes through the exhaust valve, not exhausted valve, exhaust valve. So now the ignition is done, and then again this will the piston will move upwards, and then whatever the exhaust gas, that is whatever the gas we have used, that will be taken out of the exhaust pipe, sorry, exhaust valve. Okay, this complete one cycle which is repeated. So these four strokes comprise one cycle. These four strokes comprise one cycle. That is the suction, as well as the compression, as well as the power stroke and the exhaust stroke. All the four strokes come together is called as one complete cycle, and this cycle will be repeated again and again. Okay. Now, as the distance traveled by the piston is fixed, the volume of the air drawn is always the same. So, the piston, the cylinder will be having a constant volume, because of which we can say that the air which is being sucked will be constant. Hence, the work done for every two revolution, that is four strokes, depends on the amount of the fuel injected. As the air drawn is always same, we cannot change the amount of the air drawn. The total power which will be generated can be controlled by the fuel injected. The fuel injection is controlled by opening the valve called the throttle valve. So the fuel injection here, whatever the fuel injection is there will be a valve called as the throttle valve. That throttle valve will be controlling how much of fuel is being injected into this cylinder. So as the amount of air which we are sucking into the, as the amount of air that can be taken into the cylinder is a constant value, here the amount of fuel dictates how much power is being generated in this particular engine. So that throttle valve which we are seeing, that throttle valve is the main valve for the control of the total what do you say, operation. Okay. So in the normal condition, here we are seeing the total block diagram of the diesel engine. So what different parameters are there in this? How we are how what are those parameters? Let us see. Here, TDE is the effective torque. TEL, that is the TED, is the effective torque. Next, TEL is TDE. Sorry, TDE is the effective torque. DDL is the load torque. R is the speed regulation parameter. R where here R is the speed regulation parameter, and MD dot is the engine fuel consumption rate. And based upon different parameters, we are having different situations here. Basically, on which parameters does this depend means, okay, dm is the mechanical loss. Okay, you just look into it, it is a quite normal definitions and all those things. Okay, so this total is giving us a block diagram for the diesel engine. Why are we going for all these systems? Why are we understanding all these systems? Is we just need to know in order to in order to control them, right? We need to know what are the different types of systems and what are the different block diagrams of the systems in order to control them. That's why we are just studying this systems. Okay, let's end the class here.